What's up, fellas? Have you ever felt like you're trying to juggle so many things in life and that things are becoming extremely stressful and overwhelming? If you have a desire to have less stress, more peace, and more fulfillment, today I'm going to be talking about the right order of life's priorities. How do you put life's priorities in proper order so that you can perform at a higher level with less stress today on Elite Performance? You guys ready to get busy today? Today's episode is going to be very beneficial and valuable for anyone who feels like life is stressful. For anybody who feels like life is just disorganized. And so for many of us, that's the thing, is life is stressful. Life feels like it's extremely overwhelming, like we're trying to juggle so many things at one time, and things seem real disorganized, and it seems like something's always happening or something's always messing up. It almost seems like you can't catch up with life because so much of life is going on, and many of us, we're wearing different hats. We're trying to juggle all this stuff, and life gets stressful. You can feel it. I've been there before. And here's the thing about stress, fellas, is that stress really is a killer. Stress is a killer. Like, when you really look at some of the illnesses that we're battling and some of the symptoms that people are struggling with in life, so much of it is stress induced. So when you start to learn about stress, stress actually takes up a lot of energy. It actually will drain you. Like, we need a certain amount of energy just to live. We need energy to survive. We need energy to thrive. And when the majority of your energy is being spent toward stress, and what you will often hear as described as being in survival mode, right? You often hear people talk about the fight or flight mechanism. Now I'm getting kind of scientific here. Forgive me, I'm a physician, I'm a doctor, but we talk about the fight or flight mechanism in our body called the sympathetic nervous system, and this fight or flight mechanism is meant for survival. So if a tiger comes into the room, into my office where I'm doing this podcast right now, well, my stress mechanism gets up because I need to get ready to run. I need to get ready to survive. That's survival mode. And so many of us are living in that stress mode as if we're just surviving in life. That stress mode was not meant for us to be in it constantly. And so what happens is it drains our energy. We lack energy now to be able to recover from illness. We lack the energy that our body needs to be able to digest. We lack the energy that our body needs for our heart to function correctly. We lack the energy that our body needs to be able to get rid of these free radicals that cause cancer in our body. Our body does not have the energy to be able to sustain life like we need it to. And so stress kills. And so people end up having digestion issues, heart issues, cancer, often because we got too much stress. We're trying to juggle too much stuff. Life becomes too stressful. And so the problem, one of the problems of the reason why people are so stressed and why we're so stressed as people is because we lack order. We lack order in our lives. Like, we lack structure in our lives. And so life is literally trying to juggle this, trying to not have things fall and break. And so it becomes stressful because we don't have order. We don't have structure. So today I want to talk about how do we get order? How do we get order and structure in our lives and honor that structure and order so that we aren't killing ourselves because of stress, so that we aren't living in such survival mode that we don't have an opportunity to have enough energy to be able to live our best life in terms of our health, but also have the energy to pour into others and do the other things that we need to do in terms of the other hats that we wear in life. And so, listen, I've experienced this before, man, stressed, just having so much on my plate, trying to be a doctor, trying to be a business owner. I'm not saying not to be busy and not to be able to kind of have your hand in multiple things. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to be busy and if you're going to have a lot of hats that you're wearing at one time, there has to be an order, right? There has to be an order of how you prioritize things. And I had my hands in a lot of different things, but the problem was I didn't have proper order or priority of how I really structured these different things in my life. And so as a result, I got out of shape. As a result, I didn't feel good. As a result, digestion issues. As a result, can't sleep as good. As a result, just not happy, not healthy, not fulfilled, stressful. Okay. And it wasn't until I finally got the right order and priority of these different areas of life. You'll oftentimes hear me refer to the 7 pillars of peak performance. These 7 pillars are the 7 areas that we all need to have some level of we all need to have goals in each of these areas. And so those 7 pillars are your faith, your family, your health, your wealth, your career, your calling, and your personal interests, right? And so these are the 7 things, but you got to have them in order. Like, what is the order of those 7 things that you need to have? And really, I define order as a combination of structure and space. So order is structure and space, meaning that these pillars that I just mentioned, they need to be prioritized in a certain order, 1, 2, 3, right? And then you need to create space and time to dedicate toward these different pillars that I'm talking about, okay? And so here is the order. Here is the correct order that I can promise you. If you put this order in life, you will experience on the other side of this less stress, more peace, more fulfillment, and actually performing at a higher level and get more results in life. Okay. I'll tell you my story as we go on in terms of how I've experienced this myself. And so I call this the non-negotiable order of life's priorities. This is a non-negotiable order of life's priorities. Number 1, God. Number 2, marriage. Number 3, children. And number 4, work or business. And really within that number 4, when I talk about work or business, others, other people is really in that kind of 4th spot when you talk about work is pouring into other people. I'm not going to talk about this on this episode, but relationships is really what life is about. But the order is God, marriage, children, and work. But within that work is the relationship of others or the people you work with, making sure that they're the ones that you're prioritizing when you're working. Notice each of these are actual relationships is what I'm talking about. Relationship with God, relationship in your marriage, relationship with children, and relationship with the people at work. Again, I'm not going to dive into the relationship piece, but just I want to talk about the order that you need to have. This is the order that just non-negotiable order of life's priorities. Okay. Now, why God first? Why should God be first above everything else in terms of life's priorities? And see, the reason I can talk about this is because I struggle with putting God first for so long. Talking about a guy who went to church his whole life, right? But motivated, trying to make things happen in life. I still struggle to put God in his rightful place in my life. So why put God first? Here's the deal. We are designed to be our best by being in direct relationship with God. We are literally designed to perform at our best when we are in direct relationship with God. You have to think about a high performing car. Some of you listening to this or watching this, you probably, you got a nice car, might be a sports car. And oftentimes when you look at the manual or when you open up that little gas tank, it says, best fuel to put in this car is premium, high premium. Some of the gas stations got 4 different options to choose from, but it's the one at the very end, like premium. And that car runs best on premium fuel. Let me tell you something. You, me, all of us, we operate at our best and perform at our best when we are running on the fuel of direct relationship with God. Too oftentimes, we're trying to run on fuel. We're trying to run on sand. We're trying to put sand and water in the tank on things that will not fulfill, that will not fuel us in the best way. Right? But the best way for us to perform at our best, and we have been designed to perform at our best by being in direct relationship with God. Here's the other reason why we need to put God first. It's because success is inevitable in all other areas once he's put in his rightful place. So we talked about the other pillars. When faith is first and non-negotiable, all other areas of life will fall into place. Health gets better. Okay, finances get better. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen without challenge and obstacle, but what I am saying is that you are well equipped to get past those obstacles with God first in order to have better health, in order to have better wealth, in order to be able to have better relationship, in order to be able to have clarity on your calling and purpose. All other areas of life get better. And the problem is we oftentimes have a disconnect between our relationship with God and looking at it as it's one thing, and the disconnect between that relationship and everything else. The reality is everything else is contingent upon that relationship. The car doesn't drive without fuel. The car don't drive without fuel. And so we have to fuel it in order to be able to get the best use out of the car. Everything works if we don't have fuel in the car, it doesn't work. So we have to fuel it with God. Like we've had this disconnection as, high achieving men, like, well, there's our spiritual life and then there's everything else. No, here's how it is. Everything else is dependent upon the fuel of the relationship with God. So we have to get a better understanding of how this works. I'm trying to get better in my health, I go to God. I'm trying to get better in my wealth, I go to God. I try to get better in my career, I go to God, right? Like oftentimes we're moving in the wrong direction. I'm trying to get better in my career, I try to do things in my career. No, you're trying to get better in your career, go to God. We have to get used to doing this. I'm trying to get better in this direction, go to the direction of God. Because there's just been a disconnect. So we have to understand that he is the clarity that we need in order for all these other areas to get better. Oftentimes, the other problem is we feel like we're losing something by going to God. It's like we have goals, and I used to think this way. It's like, man, I've got goals. I'm trying to do things. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to build businesses. I'm trying to do this. And if I go to God, I probably ain't gonna be able to make these things happen. And it couldn't be any further from the truth. Even as I verbalize that now, it sounds crazy, right? Because he knows all things, and he's better at me than he's better than I am at the things that I'm trying to do. So we oftentimes feel like we got to give something up by going to God, right? Like if anything, life gets better. You gain by going to God. I felt like I had to lose my personality. I felt I had to talk different, walk different, if anything more. But when I really dove in with 2 feet in my faith, more of my real personality came out. So it couldn't be anything further from the truth to think that you got to give something up or that you're going to be giving something great up by building a relationship with God. If anything, you gain more by getting that relationship right with God. So he's got to be put at his rightful place first. And that's my story, man. I mean, look, once God got put in his rightful place. And this takes work. It takes work for me every day to make sure that he's in his rightful place. Everything got better. Everything got better. All other periods of all other pillars of life got better. And so what we have to do is, with putting God first, is create space and time to dedicate toward this relationship. And so oftentimes we feel like we are giving something up to give time toward God. But what I need you to do is flip it and look at it as an investment of time with God. This is investing time with God. Many of you think about, if you think about the word invest, you invest in something, you get a return on your investment. You're looking to get a return on your investment. And here's what I'm telling you, by investing and by looking at this time with God as an investment of time, you are getting something back. You are getting clarity back. You are actually going to get more time back because you're not spending time on things that are inefficient. You will get clarity and discernment on the decisions that you need to make that will oftentimes decrease time in doing something else. But this is an investment of time of staying grounded. This is an investment of time of being fulfilled and decreasing stress so that you have the energy that you need in order to do the other things, in order to fulfill the other pillars of peak performance that I mentioned. You got to look at it as an investment of time, not as a waste of time or giving up time. You will have a return of investment with this. So the second thing that we have to put in priority after God is our marriage. Second thing is marriage. Why? Because I can tell you this, man, an unhealthy marriage is a setup for stress and draining energy. Again, we talked about the importance of having energy, like to just recuperate, to be able to do the things that we need to do in life. An unhealthy marriage is a setup for stress and draining energy, and that translates into poor performance in other areas of life. I've seen it. I've experienced it, right? Again, the problem is oftentimes we don't see our marriage as priority or as a thing that will either elevate or decrease our performance. We don't. Again, we see time spent with our spouse as pulling us away from the work that we're trying to do, right? And it's like it's pulling us away from what we're trying to do, and that it's not helping us by investing, by putting that time toward that. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Again, once I started investing time toward my marriage, instead of complaining about why it wasn't the way it should be, or complaining about what my wife wasn't doing or whatever, once I started investing that time into the marriage, again, what I got back was time. Because once I'm spending time with the family, when it's time for me to go to work, guess what? Or when I'm spending time with my wife and it's quality time, when it's time for me to actually do work, guess what she's saying? Go, I've had my time. I'm good. So you go do you. I feel like go make things happen for the family. Go make things happen for your goals, right? Because the time was invested. So the return of investment is a freedom of go get that, go make that happen. Okay. So this is what I've experienced. So much of it is counterintuitive. We feel like we have to keep working so hard at our work and our jobs and our businesses, and we neglect this area. We're going to talk about the effects of neglect here in a minute, but it has to be an investment of time. And again, what we need to do here is create space to make sure that we spend time with with our spouses, that we have, one of the things my wife and I have, man, we have weekly talk time. We were talking about this the other day, like one of the valuable things about COVID is that we just started to build this regular routine of talking weekly. We just spend time talking, catching up. What's going on with you? How are you feeling? What's happening? And we started creating this regular routine. Wednesday nights are our nights to kind of hang out, kick it, watch a show, We became big fans of the show Ted Lasso. If you ever want to watch something that's hilarious on Apple TV, it's called Ted Lasso. We watch that. That's our like time together. Sundays, we just catch up time. I mean, so much time has been just space created for just genuine talking. Had tremendous value in terms of my performance at work. It helped me in my relationship with my kids, helped me in what I do with the coaching and the podcasting. I'm telling you, like, I had no idea it allowed me to be better in so many other areas of life. Didn't connect my investment of time with my marriage to performing at a higher level in other things that I do. But guess what? My marriage is not stressful. It doesn't bring stress. It doesn't drain energy. If anything, it energizes me to be able to do the things that I need to do. It doesn't drain. It feeds me. But you got to invest in it. You got to invest in it. I didn't think marriage could be like this, but it requires an investment of time. You get out what you put in, right? So, monthly date nights, stuff like that. So we create spaces to make sure that we honor this non-negotiable order. So first God, second marriage, third is children, right? Children. If you got children, if you don't have kids, listen, because when you do have kids, if you get blessed with kids, trust me, I'm preaching right now. All right. So third one is children, man. And so why are children after marriage? Well, look, now I'm gonna just be real. If mama ain't happy, the kids ain't gonna be happy. And if ain't nobody happy, you ain't gonna be happy. It's just real talk. So mama's gotta be happy in order for the kids to be happy. It's just reality. Okay. And very similar to the marriage, oftentimes what I would struggle with is not spending time with the kids. I'm like, I got to get this done. I got to get that done. I got to work on this project. And I saw it as something that was pulling me away. And again, once I started creating spaces of time, non-negotiable spaces of time, spending time with my children, I started seeing that I became a better person that allowed me to be able to have the energy. It fueled me. It fulfilled me to be able to stay grounded, to be able to stay stress-free, to be able to be the person that I gotta be when I put on the hat as a doctor, when I put on the hat as a coach, when I put on the hat as a podcaster, when I put on the hat of working out, doing whatever. I got no stress, but it requires an investment of time. I'm not going to talk about 4 because 4 is work. Most of us are pretty good at that. We want to work. What I'm talking about is the things that we have to do to make sure that work doesn't get out of hand. And so here's the reason why this works. This is huge. This is the reason why this order works. And here's why. Here's what you have to understand is that we cannot see the magnitude of neglect. Check this out. We cannot see the magnitude of neglect. We are completely blind to the magnitude of what neglect does. Let me tell you something. Neglect equals eventual disaster. I'm going to say that again. Make sure you got that. Neglect equals eventual disaster. So I want you to think about a heart attack. See, a lot of people think a heart attack just happens right there. A heart attack is a product of neglect, right? You neglect the way you eat, you neglect the stress, you neglect the stuff, and guess what? Time over time, the arteries get clogged. Time over time. And over that time of neglect, it turns into eventual disaster, which is heart attack. And so many of us, we don't realize that we are creating clogged arteries within our relationship with God. We're creating clogged arteries in our relationship with our spouse. We're creating clogged arteries in our relationship with our kids. And all what's brewing is a future disaster, it's a future heart attack in these areas. And since we cannot see the magnitude of neglect, it's just building up. All it is building up. The stress is building up. And so what I'm talking about here is how to prevent a heart attack in these different areas, in these different pillars of our lives. Because what's going to happen is if there's a heart attack in your faith and God starts saying, you know what? No, man, no more of this. Like I need you to straighten up. Well, guess what? Now work has to stop, right? Because you on your back and you're trying to get up. Some of you know what I'm talking about. I've experienced that before. Where I'm like, dude, God, like I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. So you would neglect. We cannot see it, but it happens, and it's happening over and over. So one of the reasons why this is important is it prevents neglect. Nothing that gets neglected can grow and thrive. Okay. So one of the reasons why this works is it prevents neglect. Second thing is what I'm talking about, this order and honoring the space and time of this order is it reinforces and feeds the things that matter. Okay. Our marriage can't grow. Our relationship with God can't grow without feeding it, without investing in it. And so I'm just here to tell you, man, when you invest, it seems counterintuitive. I get it. Like, you mean invest time, spend more time? I'm already busy. I know what you're probably thinking, like, man, I'm already busy, bro. Like, it's hard for me to get everything done. You want me to spend more time on my faith? I dare you. I dare you. Spend more time in your faith and watch what happens. Spend and take that time from somewhere else and put it into your faith. I'm telling you. Invest time in the marriage on a consistent basis. Make it non-negotiable. Watch what happens. Everything gets better. See, the world's going to try to convince you that you got to go work harder. And once I work hard and I make this money and I get this house and I get this stuff, then my family's going to be happy and I'll be able to kind of sit back and relax. We'll be able to take more vacations and spend more time. When the reality is, your family's sitting here saying, I really just want you. I never said I wanted this house or this, that, and the other. Like, I really just want you here. I want more of you. We try to play we try to pretend like it's our family. We out here trying to make this stuff happen for. And the reality is, family. Oftentimes, our family ain't asking for none of that stuff. That's our own wants and needs and desires that we trying to make happen. And so we got to be real with ourselves and be like, look, man, we have to invest this time on the things that matter. And so, third reason why this is important is because it forces you to be more efficient and effective. See, when you start spending time on your faith and you start spending time with the wife and kids, you know, you're probably spending less time in something else. And because of that, whatever took you 8 hours to do for work, and now you're spending 6 hours doing it, guess what? You become a lot more efficient being able to do your work in 6 hours. The reality is this, fellas. Look, if you give somebody 24 hours to do something, it'll take 24 hours. If I give you 24 hours to do a task, it'll take you 24 hours. If I give you 8 hours to do that same 24-hour task, guess what? You get to work and you'll get it done in 8 hours. So we use the time given to us, to be able to get something done. You get more efficient and effective when you actually get less time to do something. And then in as a trade-off, you get more fulfillment, you get less stress, and because of the less stress and more peace and more fulfillment, you actually have more clarity when you're working on the stuff that you're working on anyway. That the challenge marriage and all the other stuff in the mind, that's not taking away from your thoughts. You can actually be better at work. So you become more efficient and effective. And then last but not least, the reason why this works is because it puts life into perspective. See, let me tell you something, man. God is in control no matter what you think. He is in control no matter what you think. You might think you're in control of that business. You might think you're in control of that career, but God is in control no matter what you think. And this puts things into perspective. It slows life down and you start spending time toward the things that matter. And guess what? You will probably see that the things that you thought you just needed to do all this stuff in order for the business to grow, in order for the career to advance, you ain't really need to do all that stuff, man. God got his hand on that stuff oftentimes anyway. We think we doing something. We think we controlling something, and it couldn't be any further from the truth, man. Right? And so until we start realizing that he's doing more than we can do, right? He do way more with less than we can do with all the resources around us, then until we realize that, man, we're going to keep thinking that we out here doing something and that all of the business is completely, you know, up to what we're doing and our efforts. And unfortunately, that really dwindles God into something of just, going to him when we just feel like we need him. The reality is he's controlling it all, man, whether we think so or not. The reality is God is doing, we believe God to do the impossible, but we don't ever think about the fact that he's been doing the possible this entire time. He's been doing what you think is possible in your own strength when he's been doing that the entire time, man. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to create this order: God, marriage, children, work. That's the order. That's the order. I want you to create this order in your life, and I want you to work on it. And I want you to create space in each of these areas to commit time to these areas. Create some space. Start with a little bit of space. Start with 15 minutes, 30 minutes, but start with something little that is non-negotiable. Just make sure that time happens, right? Like the time has to happen. The time with God has to be daily, even if it's a few minutes, but it has to be non-negotiable. The time with the wife has to be weekly, and it has to be non-negotiable. The time with the kids has to at least be weekly. It's got to be non-negotiable. And you got to make sure that you're present in each of these areas. When I say present, I mean like attentive, both that your mind is where you are and with who's in front of you. So create space and time for these areas and just make them non-negotiable. And listen, on the other side of this, fellas, you go from stressful to stressless. You go from lack of peace to peaceful. You go from empty to more energy and more fulfillment. And I want you to watch how much better you perform in life with less stress and more peace. With the peace and the fulfillment and the lack of stress that I have in my life, man, I have so much more clarity than I ever had when I felt like I had to do all of this stuff on my own and I wasn't investing time in the relationships that matter, like my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids. Man, my life is stress-free. And I tell you that not to impress you, but to impress upon you the dramatic results of what I'm talking about right now. I want you to think about living life with so little stress that you have full crystal clear clarity on what you have to do and be able to do it efficiently without worry.